So I recently just finished reading one of the greatest financial books of all time for the very first time, Benjamin Graham's The Intelligent Investor. But considering that this book was originally written in the 1940s, does the values within this ancient book still hold up in 2022? Let's find out. Hey everyone, it's Lewis back again with another video, and today I wanted to share with you some of my takeaways from my first ever read through of Ben Graham's The Intelligent Investor. Now before I discuss my key takeaways from this amazing book, please do give this video a thumbs up if you've also read it, and if you have, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments down below, and do consider subscribing for more money related content. So, The Intelligent Investor was a book that a young Warren Buffett once picked up and read. He was so influenced by it that he actually sought out Ben Graham to be his investing mentor, and the rest, they say, is history.
If I hadn't read that book in late 1949, I'd have had a different future.
Buffett is one of the greatest investors, not only of our time, but of all time. So the first key takeaway that I learned from this book, that quite honestly and simply, investing is a slow and simple game. It's just that most people don't realize it or want to believe it. While everyone loses their head in the stock market and tries to chase the quick money in order to make as much money as they can, as quickly as they can, Ben Graham teaches us that the intelligent investor knows this isn't how you play the stock market. Basically, you can't play it at its own game, but you can beat it if you play the long and quality game. Understanding and accepting the fact that if you were to invest your money into the stock market over decades instead of just a year or sometimes even shorter, and into quality companies that have stood the test of time, or just simply into those index funds or ETFs that include those companies already, you'd come away with a lot more money than when you went into it. Chasing the sexy money never ends well. This in turn makes investing incredibly simple. It's just that for whatever reason, us as humans want to make it as difficult as possible, or make it look as difficult as possible for people to justify why they make so much money in the stock market. But it's really not, and when you do try to do that, you'll get completely overwhelmed, lose money, and more importantly, your trust in the entire system, and you'll never go back to it. Savings accounts only for the very foreseeable future. No one needs to do this. If I listened to, or even worse, paid for a media company's stock investment strategy, no wonder I'd come out of the stock market completely beaten down and defeated. The majority of professional stock investors actually lose money. According to Bloomberg, only 17% of US large cap stock pickers beat the S&P 500 over the past 10 years through 2021. That number drops even more to only 6% when you zoom out over 20 years. This is because they're all so enamored with chasing that quick win. So with that, just buy and hold index funds or ETFs. The S&P 500 returns on average 10% per year over the last 50 plus years. If you're not willing to sit down for hours and research individual companies to try and find opportunities in the stock market where certain companies may be undervalued, and stick with what you know in that sector, you're not going to beat the S&P 500. But if you match it, you'll still beat the majority of investors out there. So the second key takeaway is that this book, even in 2022, is remarkably accurate, and really in most years. I honestly couldn't believe that I was reading something from 1973 and it was so damn accurate to right now with what's going on in 2022. It just blew my mind. But then when I started to sit down and think about it afterwards, it actually kind of made sense. During the 70s, inflation was running rampant. In the US, people couldn't afford fuel, and that's even if they were lucky to actually find any at the petrol or at the gas station. The oil crisis was a key contributor to inflation rising to 12% in 1974, a year after this book was revised by Graham for the last time. Just like today, inflation in the 70s was brought on by a global energy and food crisis. So when I began to read the book and it was talking about how crazy inflation is and that it feels like the world is going to end, you'd forgive me for thinking that I was reading something that was published 6 months ago, not almost 50 years ago. However, like I said before, when I got to thinking about this, it actually makes sense. If you look through the history of economies around the world and the stock markets with that, we go through these cycles all of the time without fail. It seems like fear and greed are the two main emotions that fuel us as humans, at least when it comes to our money. When times are good, they're really, really good. Almost too good. So we go and do absolutely crazy things like we buy way too much house because it seemed like too good of an opportunity to pass up at the time with debt being so cheap. And so when times are bad, they're really bad, almost too bad. So we go absolutely crazy and do things like sell our entire stock portfolios in order to pile it into cash into a savings account, not realizing that the stock investments were producing much greater returns for our money over what a savings account will ever do. Why do people think that saving money at 1.5% is amazing during times of high inflation? I can't answer that other than it's irrational, and that's exactly what we are as humans. It's fine, we're normal. However, I can answer that the fact it's not good. When gas prices have risen 98.8% over the past year in the UK, that 1.5% return on your money equals a 97.3% loss of your purchasing power over that time. A quid spent today is worth more than a quid saved because of that inflation. But obviously a quid invested today and sat on for years is worth much more than either of those two options as well. And thirdly, the big old takeaway is that Mr. Market is still iconic and completely true to this day. In the book, Ben Graham created this concept of the stock market as a person and named him Jim Cramer. Sorry, I mean Mr. Market. Sorry. Slip of the tongue. Mr. Market is someone who you don't want as a friend. He's that kind of person who will say to you one day that he's really, really worried about the future of the market and everyone's money for no good reason whatsoever. So he'll convince you to get out of the market and sell everything while you still can. But then, the very next day, he's forgotten about all of that, doesn't have a clue what he was talking about, and is once again really happy with the way of the world and thinks that stocks are amazing all of a sudden, and will tell you to go out and buy them again. Buy! This concept that Benjamin Graham created is simply iconic. Essentially, this is Mr. Market. So as you can see, Mr. Market is still very much alive and well today, but every single day that the stock market is open, it will go up or it will go down. The companies that you may hold or the overall indexes that you hold in ETFs or index funds will go up or down for no reason at all sometimes. The stock market is the most irrational thing in this world. There's no other one place on the planet that reacts so quickly to one piece of completely irrelevant news to the long term of our lives. This is why you'll see ridiculous news headlines from the financial world like President sneezes, Google stock tanks.
But it's just a cold.
Something that might have happened in the news today isn't going to affect the long-term prospects of a giant company like Google. It would take a catastrophic, fundamental set of changes to be put in motion over a prolonged period of time to have a profound effect on Google's yearly revenue growth. The moral of the story of this takeaway is just to stop looking at your damn portfolio every single day. If you've bought quality companies that you know very, very well and have a high conviction that they will produce you a great return on your money over the next 10 to 30 plus years, it doesn't matter one bit what the stock market is doing on a day-to-day basis. Currently, I own Coinbase, Google, Discover Financial Services, American Express, and Activision Blizzard as part of my individual investment portfolio. Look up all of those 5 companies and you will see just how much negative news stories have been produced about each and every single one of those companies, even in the last year alone, let alone over many, many periods of time. But none of that changes the fact how well I think these companies will perform over the next 10 to 30 years. So to conclude, it's remarkable to me how a book that was originally published in 1949 and last revised by the man himself in 1973, 3 years before he died, is still so accurate in describing the stock market and overall economic environment of today in 2022. I also really appreciated the brilliant commentary that Jason Zweig provided in this version of the book, which was published in 2003, that reflected the insane stock market swings of 1999 to 2003, which was the dot-com bubble era. All of these notes were another great teaching moment for me, so a big thank you to Jason for that commentary. Anyway, I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, do give it a like and consider subscribing for more money-related content. I post videos every Monday and Friday, so stick around for more in the future. Also, make sure to follow me on all of my socials down below for even more. Grab some free money and stocks down below using some links in the description. And remember, until next time, every quid counts. See you soon.